This week I want to share my thoughts on old movies and why I love them. Like, I think there's something really nice with putting on an old movie, and I just like it. But I'm a film nerd, and most people think that old films are quite boring. So what makes film nerds like me love these old relics so much? There's not just one reason for why I love these old movies. It's a bunch of them. One thing that just immediately pops up is ASL. And that's something in media science that's known as average shot length. It's basically just how long a shot lasts before it cuts to the next one. And you can see just through the last decades of cinema, the average shot length has decreased. And modern movies really has a fast pace when it comes to editing. Of course, there's huge differences between directors and editors and all of that, but generally old movies cut a lot slower because they had to do it manually. They had to physically cut a film and stitch it together. But now today it's just a mouse click and you have cut the film. You don't really think about it that much. And it's really easy to undo it. And that makes for a different type of attitude while cutting a movie. So old films might seem slow and more thoughtful, because they often are. The editors had to think a lot more before they did a cut. And I just think it's a nice change of pace. When I've seen a lot of modern movies and just put on an old one, everything just slows down. Another big thing is CGI. And not that I think CGI is inherently bad, but I think it can be a distraction. It can be like a crutch to have a big CGI spectacle to kind of trick the audience or yourself to thinking a sequence or a scene is really exciting when it's not. It's like when I saw Aquaman, I was really bored through most of the movie. And that film has a lot of CGI and a lot of visual stuff, but still I didn't really think the story was any good and wasn't that invested in watching the movie. But old movies, like I'm talking like 60s and earlier, they didn't have CGI. So they had to tell a good story to make people go to the cinema. Another reason I like to watch really old movies is because it's a piece of history, and it's a really interesting piece of history. It's what people and storytellers thought was important back in those days. And it's really fun to watch how society has changed and how it hasn't changed. Some things remain the same and something is completely different. And I think the context around how a movie was made gets a lot more interesting over time because of this kind of historic perspective. And lastly, but kind of still on the history side of things, it's film history. As a film nerd, I just love watching the old masters make cinema and just see how things were shot, edited, acted and all of that, and how we have improved a lot of that stuff, and how some things were really good back in the days. If you watch like really old films like 20s and that stuff, like the silent era, as a filmmaker, it's really fun to watch that because you see how effective quote-unquote proper editing is today. So yeah, I just really love it. And I think for film nerds and lovers, it's easy to put on old movies, but for regular viewers who don't really care that much about films, if you can like just manage to watch some of the old classics with the things I'm talking about in mind, you can really appreciate old movies and perhaps want to start watching more of them. That's it for this week's thoughts, and yeah, tell me what your favorite old film is. It has to be before the 60s. Comment it down below. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.